tamales is a pretty big process. But the first thing you have to start with is cooking your meat. Now you can use chicken, pork, beef, whatever you prefer. Today I'm using pork. I got this huge pork butt on sale. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to cook it in my slow cooker all night. And I'm probably, as big as it is, I'm going to let it cook about 10 hours. That way it'll be good and tender. And by tomorrow afternoon, I'll be able to put my tamales together. So, first thing you got to get started is season your meat. And what I got here is I've got some homemade fajita mix. And I'm going to tell you what it consists of. It's 1/4 of a cup of chili powder, 2 tablespoons of cumin, it's a tablespoon of salt, 4 teaspoons of black pepper, 3 teaspoons of oregano, 2 teaspoons of paprika, a teaspoon of garlic powder, a teaspoon of onion powder, and a teaspoon of parsley. And you can double that, triple it, put it in a jar, but that's what I'm going to use in my meat. I'm going to bring it down here and show y'all. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to take my meat and I'm just going to put this rub on it, this fajita rub. And there's quite a bit. First I'm going to rub it all over the top. And you want to be pretty generous with it. Of course, I always make a mess. Now the rub won't be the only seasoning that I put on my meat. Because once it's cooked tomorrow, I'll make a red sauce for it. And it will have ancho chilies and onions and some beef broth and a few things in it. And I'll mix that red sauce in with my meat. So I'm just going to get this rub on here real thick. Now I like pork, probably the best pork tamales. And beef would be second, chicken would be last. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put it in my slow cooker, but I'm going to turn it fat side up. And then I'm going to take my rub again, I'm going to sprinkle it over top, and I'm going to rub this side of it too, real good. I've got this stuff everywhere. I'm not going to waste it. Now I'm going to put just probably a couple of cups of beef broth in here too. If you've never put beef broth with pork, it's really good. And that's what I'm going to use. I'm not going to cover the pork because you can see how big it is. Let me wash my hands. Now, I don't know how many of y'all like tamales, but my family loves them. And I grew up around tamales. Homemade tamales down there in Texas. And I just love them. You can't get them up here, northeast Arkansas. I'm just going to pour my broth. Like I said, it's not going to cover it all the way, but that's okay. And I've got some onions that I chopped up. And they're just going to go around and on top of it. And then I'm going to put the lid on it. Let it cook 10 hours. It's going to be good and tender by tomorrow. So that's our first step of our homemade fajitas. So tomorrow, when the meat's all done, we'll go with our second step, and that's making the red sauce for the meat. Well, actually, making our masa dough, because it has to set just a little bit. And then we'll shred our meat up and make our sauce and mix it up together. And then we'll get started making our tamales. So, I'll see you later. Okay, my meat's done, and it's been cooking all night in the slow cooker for about 10 hours on low. You can see all this good broth that it made. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take it out now and I'm going to shred it up. It did have a bone in it, so that made a difference in good broth too. And I'm going to strain my broth, and I will use that broth with my masa dough. So I'm going to try very carefully to get this meat out here. Now, when you're putting this meat, especially something this big in your slow cooker, I could have cut the meat up, chunked it up and put it in there. Probably would have been easier. But I just left it whole, left it in there. And there's still plenty of broth in here. I'll put some of it in with my meat after I shred my meat up, and then I'll put the rest of it in my masa. So you can see how good, so that bone just comes right out just like that. It's good and tender. And I'm just going to get me a fork, and I'll shred it up, and I'll probably even take a knife to it and get it in real small pieces. Now, I will be getting my chilies out, and I'll be making a red sauce to mix up with my meat. So that's the next step. And I also need to get my masa made up, because it needs to sit just a little while before we start making tamales. So let me get this shredded up, and I'll show you how I make my red sauce for the meat. Okay, here are your corn husks. You buy them bagged up like this. I got these at Walmart. We also have a Mexican store there in Pocahontas that carries all kinds of stuff like this. And what you do is you just take them out and separate them a little bit. And you can do this in your sink. I've got this big dish pan that I've always used for stuff. And just some lukewarm water. And you just take them and separate them out a little bit, just as long as they're submerged. And you just take them, kind of separate them a little bit. Because you want them pliable to be able to wrap, and you also want to, it cleans them off a little bit too, rinsing them off. But they do need to soak for at least an hour. And that's how you do that. So I'm going to get me a heavy pot, and I'm going to set it on top to keep this weighted down, keep it under the water. And by the time I get everything ready, it'll be time to get our tamales together. Okay, we're going to make our red sauce now for our meat. And all I got in the pot is 2 cups of water. And these are roasted dried ancho chilies. And that's what I've got today, so that's what I'm going to be using. And all you got to do is cut the end off. And there are a bunch of seeds in these chilies, but they'll come right out. You just shake them out. Just open up the side like that and just take them right out. Now there's not much to this red sauce. And I'm just going to throw everything in there in the 2 cups of water. If you don't get all your seeds out, it's not going to hurt. I'm just going to kind of tear my chilies up. Just like this. Put them in my water. And I'm going to bring this up to a boil. And I've got 1 onion here. And it's just in chunks. I'm going to place that in there. And if you got a whole bulb of garlic, if it's not very big, just throw it in there. But I've got 5 teaspoons, and I'm just going to put that in there. And that seems like a lot of garlic, and it is, but we love garlic, and it's good for you. And I'm going to put some bay leaves. There's about 3 bay leaves here. And I'm going to let this come up to a boil, and I'm going to let it simmer for about 15 minutes. And after that, we'll take it off the heat. Let it cool down just a little bit. And then I'll get my immersion blender out, my hand blender, and we'll blend it up real good. If you don't have a hand blender, you can just put it in your regular blender. So I'm going to let this simmer, and I'm going to get to making my masa dough. We're going to start mixing our masa up now. Now this is what I buy at Walmart. It's tamales, your masa for making your tamales, and it comes in. This is a 4.4 pound bag. So that's what that looks like. And I've got 4 cups of masa in my bowl. Now this is going to make supposedly 32 tamales. And that's all I'm going to make today, because that's really all I got time for. But if I had all day to do this, I'd probably be doing this whole bag. So right now I'm just going to be doing a recipe for 32 tamales. So I've got 4 cups of masa in here. And I need 2 teaspoons of baking powder. And I need 2 teaspoons of salt. And I'm just going to take my hands, I'm just going to mix that up a little bit. Mix all your dry ingredients up. Now, in this bowl right here, that is shortening. Now, your ideal, what you need to be probably using, is just to me better, and that's good fresh lard. And I've got some coming, but I just don't have any right now, so I'm using Crisco, and it'll still be good. But what you want to do, this is 1.5 cups of Crisco, and I took my hand mixer and I mixed it and whipped it up to where it's real fluffy like this. Looks like frosting. And right here is my drippings off my meat, and I've got 2.5 cups here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start out with about 1 cup, and I'm going to take my hands and I'm going to mix this. And I'm going to make a mess. Just going to, it smells so good. Can you smell that corn, that masa? It's already smelling good. I'm going to take a little bit more. Now you can use water if you don't have any broth. Your broth from your meat's going to give that tamale such a better taste, but you can use water. And my broth is not hot, but it's a little warm still. But you don't want real hot water. Okay. I can tell by the consistency that I need a little more broth or water. And I'm just going to squish it between my fingers. And just bring it all together. I love that smell. It smells like Mexican restaurant to me. There's something about corn tortillas, masa. It just smells so good. Okay, you can see that consistency. See how that looks? It's pretty much all come together. Now, I'm going to put just a tiny bit more. I still probably got about a half a cup left in there, so I guess I used probably about 2 cups. Now, the consistency you want this masa is to where you can spread it. So, I think it needs to be looser than that. A little bit more. And put the rest of it. It's just trial and error. You just have to, like everything else. Because you want to be able to spread it. If it's too stiff, you're going to tear your corn husk trying to spread it out. Okay, it's a getting there. I'm going to bring you in just a little bit closer so you can see what I'm talking about. See how it's getting there? It looks like I'm mixing up dirty sand. Don't smell like sand, no, does it, Mr. Brown?
Smells good.
Okay, you see how the consistency has changed. So I put in 2.5 cups of broth. Now, my 1.5 cups of shortening, I'm going to put in, this will be the last thing we put in. And you see how I fluffed it up and creamed it up? That's what you want. You don't want it real stiff. And some people use vegetable oil, and you can do that too. But to me, it just turns out better with your lard or your shortening. Now I'm going to take my hands, and I'm going to work this in too. And I know you think that looks horrible. It's all going to come together. And even at this point, if need be, you can add a little more broth to it. You just keep it mixing so it all comes together. I don't think I'm going to need to put any more broth in it though. I don't want it too thin. I think it's pretty much just about right. I've got a mess going here, but you can't do this stuff and not make a mess. We'll mix it up just a little bit more. You see how my shortening, or my lard, it's all mixed in there. Took my rings off. I remembered to do that. I usually forget. And I'm just going to pat this down and let it rest for just a little bit. Probably about 30 minutes or so. I'm just going to let it sit here and rest. I'll cover it up. And I'm going to wash my hands and we'll be back. Okay, right here is my red sauce. Y'all remember it had my ancho chilies, garlic, onions, and bay leaves. I'm going to take the bay leaves out. What I'm going to do is I'm going to blend this up. And you can do this in a regular blender. So let me get this done and I'll be right back.
Helping me get it done.
Okay. I've got it blended up good. And you see the consistency. I tasted of it. It tastes good. My taste buds are a little bit different maybe than other people. I added just a little bit of sugar to it. And you might could add a little bit more salt to it or something like that. But thing of it is, this red sauce, you're not wanting to just drench your meat in it. You just want to put a little bit in there to hold it together and to give a little bit of that ancho pepper taste. So it wasn't hard to put together. Okay, let's go look at our meat. Okay, Mr. Brown's been helping me a lot this morning getting my meat cut up because I asked him, I threw my package away and I forget to look, see how many pounds that Boston butt was, but he thinks it was about 10 pounds of meat that I put in that slow cooker, and which is good because this right here is about 2 pounds. That's about all I'm going to need for my 36 tamales today.
And we got 2 or 3 pounds over here.
And then if you look over here, I want you to look at all that meat he cut up. He done it pretty quick too. And we'll probably eat some of this for supper tonight, and I'll put the rest up in the freezer for making more tamales later. And that way I'll have that much of the process done.
Main thing I done, just shredded it all up, and I would grab the shreds in a bulk, and I would cut through it. And then once I done that, then I'd take and I'd try to chop it up even finer so that it can roll. You don't want real big chunks in tamales. Get it all rolled up.
Now you see how fine this meat's cut up. No, you don't want big old stringy pieces. I mean, anybody that's eat tamales know that it needs to be cut up pretty fine. And he done a good job too.
All done.
All done. So now we'll just put a little bit of the red sauce in with this, and we can get started here in a minute putting our tamales together. Okay, I've already added some of my red sauce. I'm going to add just a little bit more. Then I'm going to add a little bit of my broth that was left over. You don't want it too loose, because it won't, when you go to roll your tamales up. You just want it to where you can pick it up and it'll kind of stick together. Put a little bit more red sauce. I wanted to put some of that broth in there because that's going to give it a really good taste. You just work with it. Use your own taste. Just as long as you don't get it too loose. And you just keep tasting it. That's really good. But I can put a little bit more red sauce. And it's got that pretty red color that you always see inside the tamales. Let's see. I think that's good. I think that'll make a good tamale. Okay. Our meat's done. Move on to the next step. And this is how I'm going to be steaming my tamales. This is my water bath canner. And what I've done is I turned the basket upside down, put my little water in there, and then these are my canner dividers that you stack your jars on. And I've got them in there. And I want to put me a couple of corn husks down here just because I don't want no water getting to my tamales. And that'll help hold that steam in too. Now put me a glass bowl down in the middle, because when I start stacking my tamales around the side, so I can just kind of lay them, you know, around on each other and make kind of like a pyramid. That way they'll stack up and stay. Okay, I've got my husk in here. What I done, and I took them out of my big pot, and I rinsed them good, and I stuck them in, you know, separated and stuck them in this pot. And I've got a little water in this pot too, just to keep them good and moist. And I also had covered them with a wet, damp rag to keep them moist. But I'm just going to show y'all. I want to show y'all what I've got here. And I ordered this off Amazon. I'll put the link below in the description box. But this is a Tamale Masa spreader. And I ordered one because I know that I'm going to be making tamales off and on. But I want you, this is really something, I don't know who done this, who made this, come up with this, but God bless them, because I'm telling you, this is a lifesaver. I want to show you how I used to do it. I'd take a spoon and put it on there and spread it. And spread it. And spread it. Well, not no more. I'm going to show y'all. You take your corn husk, and there's two sides. There's a rough side and a shinier side. You want to use the shinier side to put your moss on. And you're going to take this just like you're doing concrete or something. And you're going to take it and get you a little bit on the edge. And you're going to go about, I don't know, what would you call that, a third of the way down. And you're going to take it, and you're going to spread it all the way down, just like that. And you don't have to have it on this towel like I do. You can get it too thick sometimes, and you just keep spreading it if you have to. But usually one swiping you should do it. And you just take about 2 tablespoons of meat down the middle, just like that. And you're going to take your corn husk, and you're going to take the masa and go over your meat, kind of press it down, and then roll it. Flip the tail up, and then bring it over here to your pot. And you can see I'm just going to start setting them around like this and start stacking them. So I'm going to let Mr. Brown show you. He's a lot better at it, but I wanted to show y'all this masa spreader because I'm telling you, I love this thing. It works. Okay. So how would you explain how you're doing that exactly when you're...
All I can tell you, if you ever done sheetrock,
There you go,
if you ever mudded and taped sheetrock, you'd have an idea what it's supposed to be like.
That's what I was thinking of, yeah.
So if that's what you've done before, then...
And you just go down. I wonder if you have to do it at an angle?
No, it's basically, I figured out, it's got the depth right here on each side. So you basically flatten that moss out to the depth of this and let that lightly run, and it covers it pretty good like that.
Okay. I'm telling y'all, this is a lifesaver. Because if you don't, you know, these ladies that make tamales every day, they're good at taking a spoon and doing, I mean, they're fast, but, you know, I only do this maybe twice a year or so. I may start doing it more now with this thing. Tamale masa spreader. And the lady that invented this, I'm sure it was somebody that made a lot of tamales.
We get some that's not
If they're not wide enough,
put 2 together.
and it's about that quick. Good job, Mr. Brown.
Well, there's some things I can do, some things I can't do. Piece of corn husk. String.
Well, when you're cooking and it's almost like doing sheetrock, mudding, yeah, you can do it.
I can handle that part of it.
Okay, I've got some in my steamer here, and I'm just going to take some of my leftover husk, and I'm going to put them on top. You can put a towel in here. That works just as well. And that'll help keep that steam in there, and then I'll put the top on it too. I'm just going to cover it up good. Or steam will stay down in there. One more. Now I'm going to put my lid on it. And my lid. Put the lid on it. And I'm going to let it steam for about an hour, and I'm going to check it. It could go for an hour and a half, but I think after an hour it'll be done. And then we'll check them. Okay, we're going to... These steam for about between 1.5 to 2 hours. And they're cooled off. I'll let them cool off. And the way you can test them, make sure they're done, is to take your husk and pull it back. And if it just rolls out of it like that, then it's done. And that's a done tamale. I should have done that on the plate. There's your tamale. And taste it. I think my family in Texas would be proud of me. Let's taste it and see if it's any good. It smells good. Tastes like a good old pork tamale. And it is. It's kind of a job making tamales, but if you love homemade tamales, it's worth it. So there you go. It's pretty good. So hey guys, I hope y'all like this video and the whole process of making tamales. I know it seems like a job, and you know, it does take a little while, but there's always easier ways. Like I told Mr. Brown, you can make your meat up one day and, you know, put it up, and of course you'd have your broth and make your sauce, and maybe on the weekend when you have time to make a bunch of tamales up, it wouldn't be such a long process. But it is worth it, and they're really good. I hope y'all like this video, and I hope y'all try making them. Tamales is something I grew up with. I lived about 13 years in Houston, Texas. The old part of Houston, Texas. And this is kind of food I grew up with. So
Pasadena area.
The Pasadena area, yes. And my family's from Sulphur Springs, Texas. And they're really good cooks. And they make homemade tamales too. So, anyways, y'all have a Merry Christmas. And just enjoy your day with your family. Hope you have a Happy New Year. And God bless everybody. And thumbs up. Bye, everybody.